Hopefully, we'll be able to continue. I'm just going to, because I want this to be clean, I'm going to start this from the top, and I apologize for that, but that's just the way it's going to be. This is Barnum Walks. Next Sunday, Barnum was as bad as he had ever been. He refused to stand, and Laura had for a third stop before she could leap into the buggy. Then he reared and tried to run, pulling so hard that after a time Almanzo complained, "He is pulling this buggy by my arms." "Let me try," Laura offered. "It will rest your arms." "All right," Almanzo agreed. "Just for a minute. But you'll have to hold hard." He let go of the lines when she had a firm grip on them just behind his. Laura's arms took the force of Barnum's pull. His strength flowed up the lines like with the thrill she had felt before. "Oh, Barnum," she begged silently, "please don't pull so hard. I want so much to drive you." Barnum sensed the change of drivers and stretched his neck a little farther, feeling the bit. Then his trot became slower. He turned the corner by the livery barn and dropped into a walk. Barnum was walking. Almanzo was silent, and Laura hardly breathed. A little by a tiny little she eased on the lines. Barnum went on walking. The wild horse, the runaway, who never before had been seen to walk when hitched to a buggy, walked the whole length of Main Street. He reached out twice, feeling the bit with his mouth and finding it to his liking, arched his neck, and walked proudly on. Almanzo said, "Low. You better tighten the lines a little so he won't get the jump on you." "No," Laura answered. "I'm going to let him carry the bit easily. I think he likes it." All along the street, everyone stopped to stare. Laura did not like to be so conspicuous, but she knew that she must not be nervous now. She must be calm and keep Barnum walking. "I wish they wouldn't stare," she almost whispered, looking straight ahead at Barnum's placid ears. In a low tone, too, Almanzo replied, "They have been expecting he would run away with us. Better not let him walk till he starts trotting himself. Tighten the lines and tell him to go. Then he will understand that he trots because you want him to." "You take him," Laura offered. She felt a little dizzy from the excitement. Almanzo took the lines, and at his command, Barnum trotted. "Well, I'll be darned. How did you do it?" he asked then. "I've been trying ever since I had him to get him to walk." "What did you do?" "I didn't do anything," Laura said. "He is really a gentle horse." All the rest of that afternoon, Barnum walked or trotted when told to do so, and Almanzo bragged, "He'll be gentle as a lamb after this." He was mistaken. On Friday night, Barnum again refused to stand, and when finally Laura landed in the buggy, Almanzo reminded her that they would leave singing school at recess. But though Barnum had not been tied so long as before, he was in such a temper that Laura drove him around and around the church until they barely got away as singing school was over. Laura loved singing school. It began with singing scales to limber up voices. When Mr. Cluett taught them a simple exercise, the first in the book. He gave them the pitch with his tuning fork again and again until all their voices chimed with it. And then they sang, "Gaily now our boat is sailing o'er the blue and sparkling wave." When they could sing this very well, they learned another. This was the song of the grass. "All around the open doors, smiling on the rich and poor, here I come, creeping everywhere." Then they sang rounds. "Three blind mice, see how they run. They all ran after the farmer's wife. She cut off their tails with a carving knife. Three blind mice, see how they run. They all ran after," and so on and so on. The basses chased the tenors, and the chased the tenors, that chased the altos, that chased the sopranos around and around until they were all lost and exhausted from laughing. It was such fun. Laura could last longer than anyone because Pa taught her and Carrie and Grace to sing Three Blind Mice long ago. Barnum grew so gentle that Laura and Almanzo could stay till the evening's end, and at recess he and the other young men took striped paper bags striped paper bags of candy from their coat pockets and passed it around to the girls. There were pink and white striped peppermint balls and sticks of lemon candy and peppermint candy and horehound candy. And on the way home, Laura sang, "Oh, childhood's joys are very great, a-swingin' on his mother's gate, a-eatin' candy till his mouth is all stuck up from north to south. But though I have to mind the rule, I'd rather go to singing school." I know I could read that better, but I think you get the point. It's a happy little song. "That's why I thought you'd like to go," Almanzo said. "You're always singing." Each singing school night, the class sang farther and farther over in the book. On the last night, they sang the anthem at the very end, page 144, "The heavens declare the glory." Then singing school was ended. There would be no more such gay evenings. Barnum no longer reared and plunged. He started quickly, with a little jump, into a smooth trot. The air was chilled with the breath of coming winter. The stars were brilliant and hung low in the frosty air. Looking at them, Laura sang the anthem again. "The heavens declare the glory of God, and the firmament showeth his handiwork. Day unto day uttereth speech, and night unto night showeth knowledge. There is no speech nor language where their voice is not heard." There was no sound but the soft clip-clop of Barnum's feet as he walked along the grassy prairie road. "Sing the Starlight song," Almanzo asked. And Laura sang again, softly. In the starlight, at the daylight's dewy close, when the nightingale is singing his last love song to the rose, in the calm, clear night of summer, when the breezes softly play, from the glitter of our dwelling, we will softly steal away, where the silvery waters murmur by the margin of the sea, in the starlight, we will wander gay and free. Again silence came and was unbroken while Barnum of his own accord turned north towards the house. Then Laura said, "I've sung for you, now I'll give you a penny for your thoughts." I was wondering. Almanzo paused. Then he picked up Laura's hand that shone white in the starlight, and his sun-browned hand closed gently over it. He had never done that before. "Your hand is so small," he said. Another pause. Then quickly, "I was wondering if you would like an engagement ring." "That would depend on who offered it to me," Laura told him. "If I should?" Almanzo asked. "Then it would depend on the ring," Laura answered and drew her hand away. It was later than usual when Almanzo came next Sunday. "Sorry to be so late," he said, when Laura was settled in the buggy and they were driving away. Well, we can take a shorter drive, Laura answered. But we want to go to Lake Henry. This is about our last chance for wild grapes. Now they're frosted, Almanzo told her. It was a sunny afternoon, warm for the time of year. On either side of the narrow road between the twin lakes, ripened wild grapes were hanging from their vines in the trees. Almanzo drove slowly. Reaching from the buggy, he and Laura picked the clusters of grapes. They ate of their tangy sweetness as they watched the water rippling in the sunshine and heard the little waves lapping on the shore. As they drove home, the sun went down in a flaming western sky. Twilight settled over the prairie, and the evening wind blew softly through the buggy. Then, driving with one hand, with the other, Almanzo lifted Laura's, and she felt something cool slip over her first finger while he reminded her, "You said it would depend on the ring." How do you like this one? Laura held her hand up to the first light of the new moon. The gold of the ring and its flat oval set shone in the faint moon radiance. 3 small stones set in the golden oval glimmered. The set is a garnet with a pearl on each side, Almanzo told her. Well, it is a beautiful ring, Laura said. I think I would like to have it. Then leave it on. It is yours. And next summer I will build a little house in the grove on the tree claim. It will have to be a little house. Do you mind? I have always lived in little houses. I like them, Laura answered. They had almost reached home. Lamplight shone from its windows and Pa was playing the fiddle. Laura knew the song. It was one that he often sang to Ma. His voice rose with its music and he sang, "A beautiful castle I've built for thee in dreamland far away. And there, gentle darling, come dwell with me where love alone has sway. Oh, sweet will be our blisses. Oh, rare will be our blisses. We'll tell our time by the lover's chime that strikes the hour with kisses." Barnum was quiet while Laura and Almanzo stood beside the buggy when Pa's song was finished. Then Laura held up her face in the faint moonlight. "You may kiss me good night," she said. And after their first kiss, she went into the house while Almanzo drove away. Pa laid down his fiddle when Laura came in. He looked at her hand where the rings sparkled in the lamplight. "I see it is settled," he said. "Almanzo was talking to me yesterday, and I guess it's all right." "If only you were sure, Laura," Ma said gently. "Sometimes I think it is the horses you care for more than their master." "I couldn't have one without the other," Laura answered shakily. Then Ma smiled at her. Pa cleared his throat gruffly, and Laura knew they understood what she was too shy to say. Almanzo goes away. Even at home, Laura felt that her ring was conspicuous. Its smooth clasp was strange on her first finger, and the garnet and pearls were constantly catching the light. Several times on the way to school next morning, she almost took it off and tied it into her handkerchief for safekeeping. But after all, she was engaged. That could not always be a secret. She did not mind being almost late to school that morning. There was barely time to slide into her seat with Ida before Mr. Owen called the room to order, and quickly she opened a book so that it hid her left hand. But just as she was beginning to study, a glitter caught her eye. Ida's left hand was resting on the desk where Laura would be sure to see the broad circlet of gold shining on the first finger. Laura looked from the ring to Ida's laughing, blushing face and shy eyes, and then she broke a school rule. She whispered, "Elmer." Ida blushed, even rosier, and nodded. Then under the edge of the desk, Laura showed Ida her own left hand. Mary Power and Florence and Minnie could hardly wait until recess to pounce upon them and admire their rings. "But I'm sorry you have them," Mary Power said, "for I suppose both of you will be quitting school now." "Not me," Ida denied. "I was going to school this winter anyway." "So am I," said Laura. "I want to get a certificate again in the spring." "Will you teach school next summer?" Florence asked. "If I can get a school," Almanzo, Laura replied. I can get the school in our district if I can get a certificate," Florence. Almanzo, Florence, Lawrence. "Okay, if I can get a school," Laura replied. "I can get the school in our district if I can get a certificate," Florence told them, "but I'm afraid of teachers' examinations." "Oh, you'll pass," Laura encouraged her. "There's nothing much to it, if only you don't get confused and forget what you know." "Well, I'm not engaged, nor do I want to teach," said Mary Power. "How about you, Ida? Are you going to teach for a while?" Ida laughed. "No, indeed. I never did want to teach. I'd rather keep house. Why do you suppose I got this ring?" They all laughed with her, and Minnie asked, "Well, why did you get yours, Laura? Don't you want to keep house?" "Oh, yes," Laura answered, "but Almanzo has to build it first." Then the big new bell clanged and the cupola, and recess was over. There was no singing school now, so Laura did not expect to see Almanzo until next Sunday. She was surprised when Pa asked her Wednesday night whether she had seen Almanzo. "Well, I saw him at the blacksmith shop," Pa told her. "He said he'd see you after school if he could, and if not, to tell you he didn't have time. It seems he and Royal are leaving next Sunday for Minnesota. Something's come up, and Royal's got to go sooner than he expected." Laura was shocked. She had known that Almanzo and his brother planned to spend the winter with their folks in Minnesota, but he had not intended to go so soon. It was shocking that the whole pattern of the days could be broken so suddenly. There would be no more Sunday drives. "Well, it may be best," she said. "They will be sure to reach Minnesota before snow falls." "Yes, they'll likely have good weather for the trip," Pa agreed. "I told them I'd keep Lady while they were gone. He's going to leave the buggy here and said that you are to drive Lady as much as you please, Laura." "Oh, Laura, will you take me driving?" Carrie asked, and Grace cried, "Me too, Laura, me too." Laura promised that she would, but the rest of that week seemed oddly empty. She had not realized before how often during the week she had looked forward to the Sunday drives. Early next Sunday morning, Almanzo and his brother Royal came. Royal was driving his own team, hitched to his peddler's cart. Almanzo drove Lady, hitched single to his shining, lazy-back buggy. Pa came out of the stable to meet them, and Almanzo drove the buggy under the hay-covered shed. There he unhitched Lady and led her into the stable. Afterward, leaving Pa and Royal talking, he came to the kitchen door. He hadn't time to stop, he told Ma, but he would like to see Laura for a moment. Ma sent him into the sitting room, and as Laura turned from plumping up the cushions on the window seat, the ring on her hand sparkled in the morning light. Almanzo smiled. "Your new ring is becoming to your hand," he said. Laura turned her hand In the sunshine, the gold of the ring gleamed. The garnet glowed richly in the center of the flat oval set, and on either side of it the pearls shimmered lustrously. "It is beautiful, this ring," she said. "Well, I'd say the hand," Almanzo replied. "I suppose your father told you that Royal and I are going home sooner than we expected." "Royal decided to drive through Iowa, so we're starting out now. I brought Lady and the buggy over for you to use whenever you please." "Where's Prince?" Laura asked. "Well, one of my neighbors is keeping Prince and Lady's colt, and Cap is keeping Barnum and Skip, and I'll need all four of them in the spring." A shrill whistle sounded from outside. "Royal is calling, so kiss me goodbye, and I'll go." Almanzo finished. They kissed, quickly. Then Laura went with him to the door and watched while he and Royal drove away. She felt left behind and unhappy. Then, at her elbow, Carrie asked, "Are you going to be lonesome?" So soberly that Laura smiled. "No, I'm not going to be lonesome," she answered stoutly. "After dinner, we'll hitch up Lady and go for a drive." Pa came in and went to the stove. "It's getting so fire feels good," he said. "Caroline, what would you think of staying here all winter instead of going to town? I've been figuring. I believe I could rent the building in town this winter, and if I can tar paper inside this house, maybe even paint it." "Well, that would be a gain, Charles," Ma said at once. "Another thing," Pa continued, "we have so much stock now, it would be a big job to move all the hay and fodder. With this house sided outside and good thick building paper inside, we'd be snug here. We can put up the coal heater in the sitting room and get our winter supply of coal. There's a cellar full of vegetables from the garden and pumpkins and squashes from the field. Even if the winter's so bad I can't get to town often, we won't need to worry about being hungry or cold." "This is true," said Ma. "But Charles, the girls must go to school, and it's too far for them to walk. In the wintertime, a blizzard might come up." "Well, I'll drive them there and back," Pa promised. "It's only a mile, and will be a quick trip with the bobsled and no load." "Very well," Ma consented. If you rent the building in town and want to stay here, I am satisfied to do so. I will be glad not to move." So before snow fell, all was snug on the homestead claim. In its new siding, the little house was really a house, no longer a claim shanty. Inside, thick gray building paper covered all the pine-boarded walls. They had grown so brown with time that the lighter paper brightened the rooms, and the freshly starched white muslin curtains gave them a crisp look. When the first heavy snows came, Pa put the wagon box on the bobsled runners and half filled it with hay. Then on school days, Laura and Carrie, with Grace snuggled between them, sat on the blanket-covered hay, and with other blankets tucked over and around them, while Pa drove them to the schoolhouse in the morning and brought them home at night to the warmly welcoming house. Every afternoon, on his way to school, he stopped at the post office, and once or twice a week, there was a letter for Laura from Almanzo. He had reached his father's home in Minnesota. He would come back in the spring. And that's the end of our chapters for today. Really fun. I've read the chapter, that section in Barnum Walks many times. And that the little exchange that they have about, would you be willing to accept, would you be willing to wear an engagement ring? It depends on who's offering it. Then it's me. Well, then it depends on the ring. I'm always stunned by her maturity at 15, 16 years old to be able to offer that kind of clear certainty about who she is and what she expects, and that it's just not a simple, it's a matter of everything's got to be right. She's not just a schoolgirl who's going to say yes. And I think, and I could be wrong, and there are Laura scholars among us here, people who know far more about the real life of Laura Ingalls than I do. I'm just imagining that it's Laura's maturity as a 65-year-old woman looking back on her youth, that she is able to bring that kind of clarity. I wonder how those conversations really went. I mean, you'd like to think that Laura would have had the presence of mind to answer the way she did, and who knows, maybe Laura remembered that conversation with great clarity and just wrote it down for us. But it's quite a statement of confidence that she makes. And then, the simple awareness that he reached out and took her hand for the first time. You may kiss me goodnight, granting him permission at 16 years old to have the self-awareness to grant that permission. I just think it's fascinating and beautiful and very romantic, and it's one of those exchanges. It's one of those moments in the books that make them as idyllic as they are and beautiful as they are. And I think this is the centerpiece of what people have loved about this relationship forever. I think, and maybe people have different takes on it. I just know for me, in the readings that I've done on this is the moment. The Long Winter is terrific, but they don't do that together. This moment together, where they take fair assessment of each other, and each is clear without being too outspoken about it. Each is clear about what they want in a very lovely, simple way. It's really special. I love it. So I will be back with you tomorrow at 1:30, and I will confirm that with Allison, but I'll be back with you tomorrow at 1:30 to continue with The Night Before Christmas. I hope you have a great rest of your day. Take care of yourselves. Wash your hands. Wear your masks. Watch your social distancing. Catherine and I were talking today about how we have gotten a little more relaxed than we should be about how we are interacting with other people. And we're all so tired of the sheltering in place and being careful, but the numbers are telling us that as people relax, not good things are happening as a result of that. So I think we all just have to continue to be mindful. So take care of yourselves, and I will see you tomorrow. Take care. Bye-bye.